What up, beautiful African family? This is your main man, Theo Wilson with African Diaspora News. And if you are a foundational Black American, if you are somebody from the diaspora, I need you to lean in close. Malcolm X dreamed that one day we would be an international community and knew that the fastest way to get justice for us was to take the Paul Robeson route and take our case before the international governing body of the UN. Well, what a lot of people don't understand, especially in the diaspora, is that African folks in these governing bodies have been putting in the work to create justice for us and include us in initiatives that can uplift the continent. And because of the echo chamber that we are in, that information, that help has largely been kept away from our awareness, but no more. After Mike Brown got killed in Ferguson about a decade ago, his parents went to speak at the United Nations, and a coalition of African nations got together and did an investigation and found that Black Americans were not only owed reparations, but the treatment that has been done to us meet almost every criterion that defines genocide and crimes against humanity. So on the international scale, African folks have rolled for us in that respect. Not only that, but a lot of folks don't realize that the African Union has 5 continental regions, but the diaspora is the 6th region, and that there is a seat of power at the international table waiting for us from the diaspora if we so choose to take it and start thinking globally about our lot in life being connected to Africa's lot in life. Like, from our foundational Black American family, how many of y'all on a daily basis even be thinking about the African Union? Well, the African Union be thinking about you. In fact, every year, the African Union chooses a theme. And this year's theme is justice for Africans and people of African descent through reparations. I mean, it literally says it right there in writing. It says, this initiative underscores the AU's commitment to addressing historical injustices, including the transatlantic slave trade, colonialism, apartheid, and genocide. It builds on decades of advocacy and collaboration, aiming to foster unity and establish mechanisms for reparatory justice on the global scale. You see, when we think about reparations for Black folks in America, a lot of times we only think about it within the borders of America. But the fact is, if you look at the countries who ever got reparations, including, let's just focus on, for example, the Jews after the Holocaust, it was an international effort to get them reparations locally. If you look at the Japanese who got reparations in the 1980s from Ronald Reagan, the Japanese didn't get those reparations right after the bombs dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They got those reparations after Japan became a global power and gained international leverage strong enough to demand reparations for the Japanese Americans in the internment camp. In other words, if you look at the strategy for reparations, it would have to be a strategy that included the global African family for a specific African group. We got the what defined. We know reparations are owed. Hell, I don't even argue with people. I don't even go back and forth with folks who don't think we're owed reparations. I always tell them it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of how much, because based on the legal precedent set by every single reparations settlement that has ever been settled, Black Americans are owed reparations. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of scale, right? The what is defined. The how is what needs work. You see, reparations, more than a matter of morality, it's a matter of power. And we know that there is power in numbers and that there is no individual power without group power. And the African Union understands that and is reaching out to form solidarity with us to create mutual investment pathways so that as Africa rises in its ability to project power, that power can be projected on our behalf. Folks will say, well, that sounds good, but bro, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Well, did you know that there's a group of folks who's willing to do that for you, Black folks in the diaspora? That's right. You see, everybody in the hood know there are other peoples of color that get to come in and invest and build businesses in your neighborhood, right? You got the Indians and the Arab folks and the Chinese, Koreans. They get to come in, and because they have capital investments from the banks, from the nations that they're from, they already come in with leverage and abilities financially to do things that you can't do. And you think to yourself, wouldn't it be nice if there was a bank that could do that for black folks? Turns out there is. So if you are in the diaspora and you're a hustler, entrepreneur, somebody to know how to get some money, if they got some money, listen up. There is an organization called the African Diaspora Network, and they just opened the AFDIF, the African Diaspora Innovation Fund. What is that? The African Diaspora Innovation Fund is a bold initiative by the African Diaspora Network in partnership with Myriad USA. Together, we aim to mobilize philanthropic capital to support African and African descendant social entrepreneurs with grants of up to $25,000. You see, we know for a fact that without generational wealth, that which has been stolen from us by force, it is hard to create the kind of momentum you need, even if you have a good idea. They're here to stand in the gap for you. And another door that's open to African diasporans is the Intra-African Trade Fair. This is thrown by Afrexim Bank. Afrexim Bank is exactly what it sounds like, Africa Export and Import Bank. And they invest in all kinds of projects around the diaspora. That includes you, Black Americans. In fact, they just had their Intra-African Trade Fair early in September, and they had a whole day just dedicated to diasporas. And here's what will happen. They said, as the Intra-African Trade Fair kicked off its second day, Global Africa Diaspora Day brought together heads of state, senior government officials, business leaders, and cultural icons from across Africa, the Caribbean, and the diaspora with a renewed vision to bring unity and economic sovereignty. Now, this happened in Algeria, and let's say you don't got the resources yet to go to Algeria, right? Well, if you get this investment, then you might be able to create enough financial momentum to get there, maybe not this year, but next year or the year after that. And if you already have the resources, this is a whole new marketplace that's open and invested to you. See, here's the thing about diasporans. We've seen all these colonizing folks make a play for Africa and have a rush for Africa, and everybody has done this but us. It is time to start looking at Africa as the land of opportunity, and they've opened the doors of opportunity to you. See, look here, we got an orphan mentality, and I don't blame us, man, because we went through a lot, all right? And especially us Black Americans from the foundational lineages, man, the trauma that we've endured and continue to endure keeps us focused on survival in our own little box, right? But I remember when my father, he actually broke this down to me about these new opportunities. He said, son, this is a prison break moment, right? The problem is that we're like prisoners of this place, right? And we've developed a culture that digs in our heels, stands 10 toes down, and just fights the guards, right? And we fighting the guards, and we got a culture that reinforces that. So much so that we don't even see that the prison doors have flung open. And so what is it that you really want, right? Because we're seeing doors that used to be open to us, closed to us, like we haven't seen in 50 or 60 years, like they trying to turn back the clock, right? But I'm a firm believer that the universe, no matter what it seems like, no matter how dark it appears, is always collaborating for your highest good, right? And what if your highest good, what if our highest good, what if our path to actually getting the justice that we deserve is going to involve us going global and not be so focused on what's local? If that were the case, would you have the foresight and wherewithal to take the opportunities that are provided to you? I think that's why you tune in to the African Diaspora News channel. I think that's why you're so focused on figuring out what's happening with the rest of the world, right? Because, as I say to folks, I am a proud member of the foundational Black American lineages, right? And ain't nothing I can do to take that away from me, right? I do have indigenous blood. In fact, I tested for like twice as much indigenous blood as the average Black American. But I also got way more African than me, right? I'm a diasporan, right? And ain't nothing wrong with being proud of that lineage. But we also have to understand that our family is way bigger than our trauma has us accept. And if we can figure out how to bridge that gap and build from our side, rest assured, they're already building from theirs. And if you stay focused on these opportunities, you may have a life that you can't even dream of in short order. So make sure that you invest in these opportunities, and make sure that you tune back into the African Diaspora News channel. My name is Theo E.J. Wilson. Would follow my personal page, The Osiris Rising, as well as download the African Diaspora News app. It ain't nothing but 31 cents a day. And as you know, YouTube and them trying to censor us. So this will allow us to continue to speak truth to power. And if that's something that you desire to invest in, and I know that it is because that's why you're here, go ahead and invest in that. I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.